Hello, trading has closed on July 11th, 2024. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls, and then make our predictions. It's my trading plan for Friday, which is July 12th, 2024. I'm actually not going to be doing any trading tomorrow. I'm busy all day and won't be risking my own money on this. If you want to risk your own money, do it at your own risk, and remember, my calls can be wrong. Look for the pattern today with the early low, which is this. Tomorrow should also have the early low. We had a target, 56.1267. I thought it might not work because we had a cluster of failed targets, but it did work. Some support under that number, and then we collapsed, of course. We said yesterday that I wasn't convinced the rally was over, and we did trade higher. We had a number of things close to being a sell. We have sentiment indicators as of yesterday, which were really teetering on the edge, probably close enough, although not all of them triggered. They've all either given a sell or extremely close. We had a number of calendar targets of other people that were calling for a top within a day or two. We have the weakest 3 months of the year coming up. We had a wave count. We had a proprietary ratio of somebody else, all of which would have explained yesterday's high as being a high. And all I can say is today's high is probably close enough. I said we were close to a high in terms of time, and that's within about an hour, which is pretty close. We said unless we drop hard and fast, and preferably early, I was reluctant to say the rally was over. Well, that's within an hour, maybe even half an hour of the high. And we dropped hard and fast, and that was early, and I was reluctant to call a top yesterday, but I'm not reluctant now. I think there's a good chance this high holds, and that was the end of this leg. And if I'm wrong, there's your stop. Early on, right at the high, MEJT gave a sell signal and an ultimate sell signal. The minimum target's printed immediately, but there's no reason to stop at the minimum. When this is the pattern of the MEJT morning signal, if there's a drop, it tends to be a steep one, and that's what happened. This move was called false, and that drop was called false, and that's played out. To Mark's sell indicator on the daily chart, his stop is supposed to be interpreted loosely according to his book. It was broken loosely, but today's reversal bar invalidates that break, and we're still on a marked sell on the daily chart. We said yesterday the weekly chart would take precedent because a weekly bar is longer than the daily one, and we're still on a sell. Now these don't have to act out by dropping. They can act out by consolidating. They can fail altogether, lead to a big rally. But when there is a drop, and all these things are in alignment, and the pattern took this long to form, and the bar is that long, if there is a drop, it's a big drop. It wasn't too hard to play with my wave count. Yesterday we had magenta A ending here. All that happens is it moves up slightly to end here, and A equals C. So after completing a green ABC, we've now completed a magenta ABC up. We don't know the degree of this, but it could be of the blue degree. Let's see why. Here's the long-term chart. Now, I know other people call this a 5-wave structure. Just remember, that's just plain wrong. It's a 3-wave structure, and there's no valid way to count it as 5. Now, if we completed an ABC over 20 years in green, I was thinking we were going to have 5 waves up. But as I've said before, I just can't count this as a 5-wave structure going up. So it's a 3-wave structure. And we could be making another ABC of green to green degree, which conceivably could take 20 years again. There's no reason to look for any relationship between these internal waves, but often the A waves will have a relationship, even if it isn't a requirement. If you take green B and take the height of blue A of green B, did I get that? And you can compare it to the height of blue A of green A, you'll see a good fib relationship. And if you measure from the low of blue A of green A to the high of blue A of green B, and look at blue A of green C, it hits it practically on the nose. Right there, right on the nose. If that isn't a beautiful thing, I don't know what kind of aesthetic sense you have. So these A waves often have a relationship, even though it isn't one of Elliott's rules and isn't required. So it would be nice if this A wave, after having completed the ABC in green, would be nice if blue A of the new ABC had some kind of relationship to blue A of green A. Well, it's not exactly 50-50. It's not exactly 50%, but it's awfully close. It's 50.9%. Close enough for government work. It adds credence to this being a major high if it holds. Now, just because the elements for a top are there, it doesn't have to be a top. We've had a number of places on the way up that you could justify calling a top. But this is calling a top in spades. The elements are there. The stop loss is close. And if this holds, and if we drop, either of which we know for sure, but if those two things happen, we have the elements for a sizable drop, a very big drop. Friday's pattern has the early low regardless of where we open. We gapped up, hit a higher high, but closed under intraday highs, and even under Wednesday's low, and the reversal bar invalidates Wednesday's action. Don't forget the PPI comes out tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen when that comes out. We open over this top, everything I say gets thrown in the memory hole. But that hasn't happened yet. Today's weak action, if maintained at the open Friday, should lead to lower prices regardless of how we close. Timing indicators, sentiment indicators, and DeMark indicators all are in the area where a top is plausible, and the wave count's compatible with that. Until proven otherwise, I believe today's high marked the end of this leg, and if, in capital letters, if we get follow through, and preferably without delay, the elements are there for a serious decline. Remember, I don't know what happens with PPI. We open up here, I'm all wet. That can happen. But if we keep on dropping, I have much lower targets, and we're coming in to a weak part of the year with everything lined up for a sizable decline if we get follow through, preferably early. If I'm right, it should keep on dropping pretty fast, but tomorrow doesn't even have to close down. Tomorrow closes up and that holds, it doesn't change a thing. It is the pattern with the early low, and that's today's call.